Hello, my friend, Pastor Kurt here, and I've got a question for you. How's your personal bravery level? You got a lot of courage going on? If you're anything like me and a lot of people, you're finding yourself very worried about the future right now. But you can have more courage, and it's one simple act away. That's right, in the midst of all this, you can be filled with encouragement. You can get encouraged. How do you do it? Well, the Apostle Paul goes through this storm in Acts 27. I talked earlier about the fact that first thing he did is he told everyone to eat. It's kind of interesting to me. It's not a spiritual answer. He wanted them to take care of their brains, their minds, to not be hangry. And then he says this. He says, I'm going to show you the way. He gives them this great speech, and he follows through and actually eats some of the bread himself. Here's what it says in Acts 27, verse 35. After he said this, he took some of the bread and he gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. For weeks they're not eating. For weeks they're panicked. For weeks they're paralyzed. For weeks they're stuck. And then Paul stands up in front of them and says, listen, you can do this. And not only his words filled with courage, his action. He eats and then they eat. One act of courage, one demonstration of courage can actually change the dynamic entirely. I had a friend, his grandfather was in World War II, and he told me this story. He said, we were in a bunker, a hole in the ground really, at the Battle of the Bulge. And the planes came over after weeks of no food, very little ammunition, no clothing, holes in our socks, freezing. The planes came over and dropped supplies. But the supplies got dropped 50 yards from where we were protected in our tiny little hole, our tiny little foxhole. He said for hours we stared at that box wondering, was it clothes? Was it ammo? Was it food? And finally, one brave soldier got out of that foxhole and started running for the box. And when he showed courage, the rest of them got out and they covered each other and they hit the ground and they grabbed the box and carried it together and they all got back to the foxhole safe because of the courage of one man. They opened that box and inside of it were Hershey's candy bars. He said it was the best thing he had ever eaten or ever would eat. My friend, God's got provision for you. God's got energy for you. God's got help for you. God's got ammo for you. But it's going to take an act of courage to get out of the little hole you're in and demonstrate your faith to access that courage. And don't be surprised when you take that one act of bravery, that one act of courage, if it doesn't inspire everyone around you to be encouraged too.